Good morning, Fuzzman Sparkles. Fuzzman Sparkles would like to know if I've ever seen lions like the ones in Botswana that hunt elephants. I actually have. I've actually seen lions in Botswana hunt elephants a couple of times. So I grew up in an area where lions hunting elephants is, well, the lions are quite famous for hunting elephants. I just want to see if I can get a view of these impala to see what and where they are snorting. Duck. Here we go. You okay, Dave? They could just be snorting at the wind wafting the scent of lion around. Oh, there goes Opa. Hi, Opa. No, I think they're just snorting at the scent of the lions, which they definitely can't see from where the lions are. So Linda is wondering about the missing 2 lions from the Nkuhuma Pride. Yes, they were seen yesterday to the north of us. So they are around, they are fine. A lot of people think they might be splitting from the Pride. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think they are probably in an estrus cycle, or during an estrus cycle they've been separated from the rest of the Pride. But I'm quite sure they will join up with the rest of the Nkuhumas again. I don't think they're going to split the Pride. There's no reason. They're definitely not big enough Pride to have to split. Normally lion prides will split when they are getting quite big. So, and at the moment the Nkuhuma Pride is still a relatively small pride for this general area. Hey, Nkuhumas. Hello, you guys. Here we go, getting a good cleaning from Mom. Now, Chris is saying that the Nkuhumas haven't left the spot in quite a few days. Well, I think, where did we find them here? Yesterday morning, so they haven't been here for too long, but they were in a very similar thick area in Arathusa for a day or two, and Chris says it's almost like they're hiding. Well, I think they're hiding from a hiding. I think they got given a hiding by the Torchwood Pride, and that's what's causing them to be here, because at this time of the year they would preferably want to be on the basalt plains of Buffelshoek, where all the zebra and wildebeest and buffalo are at the moment. So I think the bigger female pride have chased them here to the south, so they are hiding to a bit. And also must remember, we've had a lot of movement with the Matimbas up and down and around, and Birmingham's chasing them, and so there's been a lot of male anarchy as well, so that's why they've probably a bit nervous at the moment. You can see there's a nice bite on her bottom, and it's healing up quite nicely now, but they definitely look like they've been in a bit of a box up with another set of lions. And with cubs of this age, they're probably erring on the side of caution. So there we go. Alyssa's wondering, how do the lion prides get their names? Well, a lot of these prides have had names for a very long time, Alyssa. It'll generally be the guide who first saw them. So the Nkuhuma Pride is named after a brown ivory tree, and the first time they were seen was under a brown ivory tree in Buffelshoek. And at a place called Brown Ivory Clearing, because the only prominent tree there is an Nkuhuma tree. So Nkuhuma is the Shangaan for brown ivory. The Styx Pride, I'm not quite sure where they got their name from, but the Styx Pride existed in the early 2000s when I first came and started working in the Sabi Sands. I presume it's got something to do with the River Styx. Dave, do you know what the River Styx is?
No.
Dave, I need to give you some books to read. So the River Styx is the route to Hades, and there used to be a very big pride that was very good at killing things. So I think there might be the River Styx sending you to hell. So I think that's the original where the Styx Pride got their names. Other than that, most prides are generally named after an area that they spend a lot of time in. So the Tsalala Pride is named after Tsalala Pan, which is in Londolozi, and a Tsalala tree is actually a gardenia, but they used to spend a lot of time around that area. The Mangen Pride, which is a break-off from the Tsalala Pride, spends a lot of time in the Mangen River system, which is also to the south of us. Male coalitions, I'm not quite sure who named the Majingalans. The Mapoho, again, I'm not quite sure who named them, but so either it's where they're found or a characteristic of the pride, but normally the area that they're most frequently seen in. So I'm hoping they're going to get moving, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer before I decide whether I think they're going to be flat cats or mobile cats. But while we do that, let's go see Stef, who's got something even taller than me.
Definitely taller than Brent is this giraffe that we're having a look at. It's quite, giraffe are these funny things. I'm convinced that giraffe have local migration patterns that they follow, even if they're not particularly seasonal. But we won't see giraffe for months, and then all of a sudden we start seeing giraffe again. And in this particular case, this is a giraffe mother and calf, which have been on the property for a couple of weeks now. And we're just lucky enough to bump into them on foot. Very vigilant, and at this particular distance they know exactly where we are and what we're doing, but they're not concerned at the moment because we are outside of what we call their alert zone. We're in their comfort zone. So comfort zone is when I look up and I see a giraffe there, but I'm happy enough that I can carry on with what I was doing anyway without influencing my behavior. So that's the comfort zone. That's where we are right now. You'll find that as the zone moves closer to the giraffe, we get into what they call the alert zone. And what that is when I stop doing what I'm doing and I face you, or I face the threat. That would be when the giraffe stops eating, turns away from what it was looking at or doing, and faces us directly. We then get into a zone called the warning zone. And there, an animal will display an obvious reaction to your presence. So, stopping what I'm doing and looking at me or looking at you, and then moving into a point where I'm not going to go back to what I was doing. So then I'm going to turn away and run away, or shake my head, or snort, or growl, or maybe even mock charge if you're an aggressive animal like a rhino or an elephant or a lion. And then you get into a zone which you never want to be in with an animal. You get into a zone called the fight or flight zone, which is when I've warned you that I don't like your presence there, but because you're not moving anywhere and you're actually getting closer, I choose to do two things. I choose to do either I fight you or I run away. And I'm doing that because I'm starting to fear for my life. Now those are those four zones. So the comfort zone, the alert zone, the warning zone, and then the fight or flight zone. We try as much as we can bounce between the comfort zone and the alert zone of the animal. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you with this particular giraffe that we're in the comfort zone right now. There's a giraffe busy looking at us, and what I'm expecting it to do at a point is to either go back eating or have its attention diverted by something else. And that would tell me that I'm in the comfort zone, not in the alert zone. What we don't want to do influence these animals' behavior. It's a it's a big thing for me on walks not to influence animals' behavior, and I try as much as I can to try and read animals' body language. There we go. So its attention is being diverted by something else. So we are not holding that much attention. I would imagine that because this particular giraffe is not immediately going back to eating, that we're quite close to the alert zone. And that if I were to take 2 or 3 steps even closer than I am now, or the wind have to shift and blow our scent directly onto those giraffe, that they would actually move away from us, creating that distance that all animals want to create from humans. So let's see. So still attention being diverted by something else, and that giraffe is a good indication that something is off to our right hand side, and that because we're walking in that direction, that eventually we need to excuse me, I'm just being distracted by some noises coming from the direction that the giraffe is busy looking in. I don't quite know what is there, but there's a disturbance in the grass behind us. Now don't forget, you can ask us questions using the hashtag #SafariLive. Please do. You know, it's one of those ways that we interact with you. We love hearing from you. We love hearing your questions. And tell all your friends that are busy driving to work at the moment or driving home from work that we're looking at some giraffe, and we've got some lion on the screen as well that Brent is sitting with. And we are hopefully going to be able to get to where we left Karula, a female leopard, last night, and have a look if she's managed to make a kill or something for her cubs. We're almost there. We're probably about 200 or 300 yards away from where we left her yesterday. Let's go back to this giraffe, excuse me, and see if we move off a little bit, if this giraffe will go back to feeding again. So the idea when you're on bushwalk and when you're approaching animals is to basically bounce around on the edge between the comfort zone and the alert zone. You want animals to know you're there, but you don't want them to stop what they're doing. So that's what we try and do here. So that giraffe knows we're here, but it's not gone back to eating. So I think we're probably just on that edge of that alert zone at the moment. And a good thing would probably be to create a little bit more distance, probably another 10 yards or so, and see if that giraffe goes back to feeding. So let's create a little bit of distance by walking down the road a bit more, and we'll get into a different position. There's what was catching the attention of the giraffe, its mom. And you can see that giraffe is just carrying on with its day. That is fantastic. You see, that's exactly what we try and do out here. Not influence the animal's behavior, but at the same time being close enough to actually enjoy them in their natural environment. And there she's busy eating. Mission accomplished. I'm quite happy with that. All right, we're going to send you over to Jamie, who's changed cars at the moment, and I'm sure would love to give you an update about what she's up to.
Well, fingers crossed this will help matters, because then we can actually go and look for these leopards. Yay! I'm very excited. I hope they are still somewhere in the area where Taylor had them last. I'm sure that Karula managed to catch something in this area last night. There's just so many antelope wandering around, and I'm hoping we might encounter them, perhaps on a fresh kill. That would be ideal, wouldn't it, Craig? Now that our morning is back up and running again. I'm reduced.
We had a little bit of issues. Obviously we haven't fixed the issues yet with Jamie and her car, which isn't too much of a problem. Don't forget, we are coming to you live from the middle of a massive wilderness area, and getting these things perfect all the time is an impossible task, and does require, you know, from time to time a bit of TLC on our equipment. Now that area there is, and through this virtually impenetrable thicket, is facing southeast, and in that direction we are hearing alarm calls of impala, and that is exactly the area that we left Karula and her 2 cubs in yesterday. And so we're going to make our way slowly into that area. This type of bush is very thick to go running through. You don't want to do that. These thickets and this type of bush is perfect for things like elephant and buffalo, and so you want to walk a little bit and make sure that you are giving enough distance between bushes and thickets. So you don't want to go right towards a thicket like this. You want to cross next to it so that whatever's lying behind it or feeding behind it, you don't get too close. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Jamie's found some signal again. We're going to send you back over to Jamie, who's at Chelepan, where these noises are coming from with those impala, hopefully.
Okay, let us try that all again. So Stef says that he can hear some alarm calls. I'm just going to take my earpiece out for 1 second, because as you can see, these impala are not alarm calling at all. In fact, they're not even concerned. They're not even looking at where these alarm calls are coming from. So I just want to listen. Can you hear anything, Craig? Just unblocking my ears. These 2 rams look like they want to have a little bit of a box. Okay, popping my earpiece back in. I think I can hear some alarm calls a bit further to the east of us, so through the Mwati. Here we go. That's a massive bachelor herd of impala. Yesterday, Taylor described the impala herd around here as every impala on Juma. She said she just had hundreds of them wandering around. So it seems as though the breeding herd that must have been here have moved off, leaving behind just the males, gathered together in their gentleman's club. Lots and lots of them wandering around, preparing for the right gathering up their strength. We've got about 2 months or so before the males start to really fight each other, actively fight each other for mates. And the build-up usually brings a few skirmishes in between them, practicing the skills that they're going to need to utilize in earnest at some point relatively soon. For now, their behavior just involves bulking up as much as possible. Sorry, I thought I heard a bark behind me. All's gone quiet though. These guys are not stressed out at all. A few of them are lying down and ruminating. Okay, not a few, one. One is lying down and ruminating. A few of them were lying down and ruminating. I'm sure they can tell us exactly where the leopards are. I'm sure they're still here somewhere though. There's been lots of fake antagonism between the various impala brands. And welcome to Amandia, who would like to know what the most populated animal is where we are. Amandia, generally when that question's asked, it's usually referring to mammal species, so we'll go with mammals for now. This is the most populated mammal species that we get out here. Over 100,000 in this reserve, probably quite a bit more in just this sort of greater Kruger National Park area. About 100,000 of these. In terms of insect life, termites and ants would be the most populated animals, insects, arthropods, let's be more specific. And then in terms of birds, that's a difficult one, because at certain times of the year we get those massive flocks of red-billed quelea, which are the most numerous birds that we get out here. We haven't seen many this year. We've seen flocks of 100, 200, but not the flocks that you get with 1,000 or more birds that flutter around. There's a nice, not unusual bird for us, but there is a bird for some of you who are new to these live safaris to add to your bird list, because very soon it's going to be gone. It is a red-backed shrike, and it's a migratory species, and that's what I mean when it's going to be gone, not just that it might fly away at any second. Here we go. A beautiful bird that I learnt on these live safaris does not... Oh, bye-bye. Oh, gone in both... Oh, back again. What did you catch? Did you catch a grasshopper? Well done. Oh, gone in 2 bites. Wonderful. Okay, there's a road that I haven't checked that I suspect they might be, but I need to check into the Mulwati first. But yes, for those of you who are new to these live safaris, there are certain bird species you better grab quickly before they start heading back to Europe or to Central Africa, the places that they spend our winter months, those areas summer months. Are you going to battle, you two? No, you're just going to shake your heads at each other. Let's just watch them for a sec. He looks like he wants to, this gentleman looks like he wants to cause a problem. Have a bit of a fight. You can see everybody's on edge. None of the Impala rams want to go past each other or get too close in case somebody starts something. And every time one of them comes close to the rear of another, they immediately turn around and face them horns first, just in case. They are looking, every now and again they're glancing in the direction that Stef said those alarm calls came from. They're definitely not coming from around here, around Chelepan. But look here. Look at them all looking that way. Ears open. Focused, not panicked, but focused on what's going on. All looking in the same direction. I'm not sure exactly where the walking team is, but I'm sure they're racing towards those alarm calls. I'm going to go and see what these Impala are looking at and find the alarm calling ones. In the meantime, let's go over to something that most definitely would cause much alarm in an Impala herd.
Well, no, she's up, she's down. I don't think they're going to move too much. We might stay here a little bit longer, and then we're probably going to go give Jamie a hand, seeing if we can find the royal family. But I think Nkuhumas pretty static at the moment. Actually, let me rephrase this. They're not pretty static. They are static at the moment. As you can see, that little one is fast asleep. And they're still quite full. Whatever they killed 2-3 days ago is keeping them going. So, not really driven to hunt at the moment. Gave us a bit of a hard time finding them this morning. It's a very thick area that they're in. It is a cool day, so there's always a possibility they might move. I was really hoping the way that lioness was grooming herself, she might get the rest to move, but all she did was groom, take 2 steps, and flop over. So I still haven't got any answers for that pretty white flower. Here we go, another look at that. Who can remember what flower that is? Hashtag Safari Live if you know the answer. Very sleepy kitties. Well, looking at them, it almost makes me want to wish I was back in bed. They look so comfy. Yes, I don't think they're going to move much. I think they're probably going to be in this exact same spot come sunset safari. Lazy, lazy lions. Now, of course, they're lazy by design. If their body temperature raises just a few degrees, it puts them in life-threatening peril. Well done, Lucy and Anna. You are spot on. Indeed, the pretty white flowers are anthericums. Aren't they gorgeous? One of the flowers out here that doesn't really have any uses apart from just being beautiful and providing food for bees and other insects. Now, of course, I'm only talking about human uses. Anthericums tend to grow along seep lines, so they will help enrich the soil. Andrew's had his share of the lions. He's heading off to see what else he can find. I said we're going to stay here. I don't think we're going to stay here much longer. I don't think these lions are going to be moving at all till this evening, but we'll definitely be back here in the evening to see if they do get on the move and get on the hunt, and hopefully they head further south, deeper into Juma. Now, I've got some exciting news. Well, we're looking at a very small little male lion having a snooze. I think Jamie might have found a boy that's a bit bigger.
Two boys that are a bit bigger, and two boys that have taken me completely by surprise, and actually everybody else who is driving around this reserve. I don't quite know how the Birmingham boys managed to levitate into the centre of Juma, but somehow they managed it, because here they are. It looks like Tinyo and Mufmo. It's definitely Mufmo on the right. I can see that injury underneath his eyes. Hello, boys. You weren't here when I drove past earlier, neither were your footprints. No, they were not. What a pleasant surprise you are. This is the first time I've seen a male lion in about a month and a half. How lovely to have you back on Juma once again. Can you please go and speak to the Nkuhumas and tell them that it's okay and that you're back? Because they're so skittish at the moment. Well, I assume this is what was causing the alarm calls, because I promise you there were no lions here when I drove past here first thing this morning. So they must still have been moving. And they've popped out here right, literally right in the centre of Juma. What a lovely, lovely surprise. And yesterday they were all the way on Manuleti, all four of them. They went from the Mala boundary, all four of them, which is right to the south, and then went all the way into Manuleti, which is right to the north. All four of them, all together. So obviously banding back together again. And now here they are, looking a little hungry, in the case of Tinyo. His hip bone's sticking out just a little bit. Long time no seen. Where on earth did you come from? Because you did not leave a footprint, and even in this light and in these conditions, finding a male lion footprint is relatively easy. One of the easier ones to find. Fast asleep. Well, they have been doing a lot of walking. I'm sure that's what caused the alarm from the Impala, but then that's why they relaxed so quickly. It's just the fact that these male lions are clearly not on the hunt, and they're not keen on doing much at all. Let's have a look back again at Mfumo's face, just to see how he's doing. It's looking a little bit raw and a little bit pink, but still healthy enough. And considering how nasty that injury was before, I think it's healed up relatively well. He's lucky he didn't lose that eye. It's just below it. Shame, Mfumo. The right-hand side of your face has just been mauled. There's still puncture wounds up there. We can see a fly around the sort of the beginning of his mane. And Mfumo seems to be the most battle-scarred of the Birmingham boys. He really does just seem to acquire injuries every time we see him. But it is special to re-encounter these lions once again. They've been largely absent. Oh, and a broad-banded yellow. Just fluttering past, grass yellow, butterfly. I wish it would go and rest on his mane. There's nothing like a surprise lion sighting. It's not the first time the Birmingham boys have done this to me in this area either. It just popped out. I agree, Justin. It seems as though our lions have learnt to utilize Karula's portal system. She's well known for disappearing in one spot and reappearing in the opposite side of the world, not quite the world, opposite side of the reserve, without any of us knowing exactly how she got there. And it seems as though the male lions have learned the same trick. They must have come from the eastern side of the reserve, because I didn't pick up on any tracks coming, and I've just done the whole western side of the northern boundary. So they must have come from there. And that would explain Karula's absence in this area. This is very close to where Taylor had her last night. That's not to discount her. She might be somewhere lurking, as could her cubs be. But they've picked a very picturesque spot to plonk themselves down. Now we just need a little bit of morning sunlight to make it even more beautiful. A massive puddle, it's actually a pan, next to them, so plenty of water to drink. And I happen to know that mud hole is big enough for a hippo to sit in. It's actually deep enough to cover a hippo completely, and the only reason I know that is because I kept finding a hippo there at one point. And there we go on that subject. Buttons Cockatoo would like to know whether or not that is a new waterhole from all of the rain. Buttons, yes, it is. It's not a new one. It's a well-established one, but it was completely dry and completely empty over sort of around the December-January period. And then when we got all of this rain, it's filled up nicely. It is essentially would have started as a puddle that got bigger and bigger the more the different animals came to wallow in it. And this particular section of road has a couple of these where the mud wallows are actually so deep that they've become proper little water holes. So this is 100% natural. It hasn't been dug out by people, and it is deep. As I said, it's deep enough to hide a hippo. So what a perfect spot to come if you're a male lion. There's always the chance of something perhaps coming for a drink that they could capitalize on, and at the same time they've got plenty of water, plenty of shade. All in all, the perfect spot. I love surprises like this. Our sofa tato, you want to know how tall they are in terms of feet. Over 3 feet at the shoulder for these male lions. And I just want to, obviously this one is quite spread-eagled and flat, but if I give you a comparison of what they look like next to us, next to the vehicle. So if I'm sitting here and a Birmingham male comes past me, you're looking at his shoulders being around about here. Can you see that there, Craig? Yeah. His shoulders being around about here, the top of his head around about here. So when they turn and look at me, I can almost look them directly in the eye. They're just a little bit below me. They are absolutely massive cats. I was actually watching Kevin Richardson. Just before I went on drive yesterday, I was watching a little bit of stuff that he was busy cuddling his lions, and we'll go into that in a minute, but he was busy playing with his male lions and picking the ticks off them, and it gives you a really good idea of a sense of scale, of just how massive these cats are. When he comes and he tries to pick up their heads, and they're just this big. It really is a truly astounding thing. Now, Kevin, of course, we always talk about the fact that you don't cuddle lions. Kevin cuddles his lions, but they are rescued lions, and he doesn't breed with them, and he doesn't let anybody else do it. So he's taken them away from the bad life that they would have had. They're lions that can't be released back into the wild. And he keeps them, he uses them, instead of making money off tourists coming in to pet them, which is a dangerous thing, and it will invariably result in an injury at some point. Instead of doing that, he actually basically uses them to learn more about lions. So when scientists come in, they can do, because those lions are so relaxed around people, they can do tests with them in terms of how lions pick their prey, how they compare in terms of intelligence with puzzles and so on. So much better than the life of a zoo lion, obviously, and he says the same thing. It would be ideal if those animals were living wild, but since they can't, due to animal intervention, he tries to give them the best possible life that he can. It was fascinating. I really enjoyed watching that. I haven't thought about Kevin Richardson in a long time. I'm impressed with his bravery. Hold on, there's a monkey alarm calling. That's probably Karula. Ooh, now what to do? These lions aren't going anywhere, and we're going to miss Karula if we don't go now. I think let's go follow up there. Oh, I can't. We don't have any signal there. Walking team, you need to start jogging. You need to start jogging now that way. Don't jog past the lions. Okay, I'm going to go race and do a quick check of this area. While I do, let's go and find out where the bushwalk team is.
We actually can hear Jamie, to be honest with you. We saw an aerial, we know where that male lion is. We came into the same area just to make sure that those alarm calls coming from those impala were not in fact coming from a double sighting, from a lion and a leopard. It's very common for male lion to come into an area where impala or kudu or monkeys are making an alarm call in the hope that they steal a kill from a leopard in particular, or from lioness. So male lions in the Kruger National Park are opportunistic, and they're not often with the pride. We've been spoiled the last couple of months is that we've had Jamie's now coming in this direction, which makes me think that the lion's walking in this direction. But we're just going to stay here in the open. We've got a pretty good view around us of any approaches. We can hear the same monkeys that Jamie can hear, or did hear, and I don't know, it adds a sort of excitement spice to the bushwalk. You don't quite know what's here. This is the exact area around about where we left the leopard last night. Have a look at the impala moving through the bush there. You can see one's bottom just walking through. Now that's important for us because that gives us an outpost sentry. So we've got that approach covered. So we now know if those impala all of a sudden start to give massive alarm calls, that something is there and moving in this direction. For the rest, we've got a pretty open, an open view of the bush around us, and so we're relatively safe, even though the bush is thick where we are now. I'm not too concerned about being snuck upon by a pride of lions. This is a very prominent crossing point, though. You can see where we're standing here. There's a crossing point just down there on the other side of the river. This is a game path that is used widely for crossings of elephant, lion and leopard. I've seen crossing here, and it is one of the reasons why I came here. Not going to find anything if you look in the wrong place, and animal crossings are one of those places that you have to look for. So now those monkeys have stopped calling, which makes me believe that the monkeys were looking at the lion and giving their alarm call for the lion. The reason for that is that a male lion poses very little threat to a monkey or an impala, for that matter of fact. They're just too big and too bulky to effectively hunt them. So while an animal will give an alarm call at a lion, in particular a male lion, it's usually an alarm call, and then they realize, but hang on, wait, this cat's not going to do anything to me. It's a big male lion. I'm safe in the top of my tree, or in impala's case, I'm safe in the open area. And basically, they just stop alarm calling and they just watch that animal. So you can almost tell what type of animal it is by listening to the alarm calls. Alarm calls that are short and sharp and then stop are quite often lion. Alarm calls that carry on and become quite frenzied, in particular for monkey and impala, are usually leopard. Anyway, we're hearing none of that stuff at the moment, so we're going to carry on looking for Karula and her cubs around this area. We're going to send you over to Brent, who's got an update for you.
Well, the update is I've left the Nkuhumas and there are no alarm calls around us, so I'm heading further to the east. I decided let's go check around the northern boundary. So those Birmingham boys definitely came in from this side. So there were 4 in the north yesterday, so there could be another 2 on Juma still. So we're going to go have a look around the Buffelshoek waterhole, Cheetah cut line. You never know what might be out there. We might also get lucky with some leopards or some wild dogs. There's been no sign, I'm just being hopeful. Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you want to ask us any questions. We might do some birding as well. I think some birds are in order. Now, of course, very straight, these boundary roads, but it is a really good place to look for tracks. See who's in, who's out, who's hip, who's happening. Okay, so as you can see, not much happening out here at the moment. What are we looking at here? Nope. No tracks there. Now I have been chatting over the last while a little bit about what animals we might expect to see. And it's very old lion tracks. Very old male lion tracks here in the mud. Not fresh at all. About what we can expect to see outside of South Africa and in the travels that Safari Live is hopefully going to have over the next while. And we chat a little bit about the fact that we're probably going to see some eland in the Mara. Now, of course, that's the biggest antelope we're going to see in the Mara. Who can tell me what the smallest antelope we're going to see in the Mara is? Hashtag Safari Live. What is the smallest antelope we can expect to see in the Masai Mara? Aha! I think I got you now. So hashtag Safari Live if you know the answer. It is actually a very pleasant temperature this morning. Our English friends are not melting on the back. I thought it was going to break up. There's still a sort of sign of some blue sky through the cloud occasionally, but it's very, very, very pleasant this morning. Not too hot, not too cold. Okay, so as I said, we're heading east along the northern edge of Juma. No sign of where those males crossed in, but they must, so maybe they crossed in at Buffalo's Hook Dam, maybe they left two friends waiting for us there. Dave, I wonder if our comms are working because we haven't heard anything for so long. There we go. We've got comms again. I didn't quite hear what Carl was saying, but Carl was asking a question. Carl's answering. Carl says, is Duiker the smallest animal we're going to see in the Masai Mara? Dave, do you think Duiker's the smallest animal? Nah. I think Dave's right. Dave's not often right, so we should better give him a round of applause. Well done, Dave. My pleasure. Aha! It's so nice you say it twice. Dick Dick. Well done to Jason and many others. That is correct. A Kirk's Dick Dick is the smallest antelope we're likely to see in the Masai Mara. They are tiny, and they've got funny little noses. They are very, very cute. When I was in Tanzania, we actually, one camp we used to use for private safaris, used to have Dick Dick that was so calm you could walk within a few feet of them in between the rooms. And there's a massive population of them around Arusha, and that live in the coffee plantations. And I used to play rugby when I was in Tanzania, and the rugby field is actually very pretty because you look at Mount Meru and Mount Kilimanjaro while you're playing rugby. And the one day we did have a Dick Dick run across the field in the middle of the game. It was quite funny. Now we are likely to see, or possibly we can see, a carnivore that we've never seen before. And I'm trying to think how to word this without making it too obvious. We're going to see hopefully a few carnivores we haven't seen before, but one in particular. Wait, we have to check as we go past this tree. Let's have a quick look. Oh no, the owls are not at home today. This is the tree that the owls are often in, but they're not at home today. Okay, I'm going to think about how to word this next quiz for you, but while I try make sense of the scrambled nonsense that is inside my head, let's go back to Jamie and the beautiful Birmingham boys.
I know all about trying to make sense of the scrabbled nonsense inside one's head. So we've returned back towards the Birmingham boys. I did a quick check where the monkeys were alarm calling. I found the monkeys. They'd gone quiet again. I'm sure it's Karula or one of her cubs wandering about, but we'll leave it to the walk team to see whether or not they can find them. It was a bit difficult to do it in a little bit of a rush, just to skip through and just check. I wanted to make sure that she wasn't on her way to the south and about to cross our boundary, since I don't think these Birmingham boys are going to disappear. Not in the same way that Karula does, even with their newly discovered portals into different places. So nice to see them back together once again, and looking relaxed and healthy, even with Mufmo's scratched up face. Going to have some serious scars by the end of this. It's time you stop battering that side of your face, mister. Shame. Scraps with other males, quite possibly within his own coalition. Although the fact that the four of them have been joined up together suggests they're putting forward a show of strength. Now, Thomas, you want to know if lions can retract their claws. Well, let's have a look at his front feet, and we can properly talk about the answer. So the answer to that is yes, they can. So just above those sort of greyish patches that are the pads of his toes sits the claw sheath. And the claw sheath is a sort of a cartilage type substance, and the claw lives inside that. And it is razor sharp, and that's one of the ways in which they keep it razor sharp, is by retracting it. So you won't ever see a lion's claws in its track unless it's running in mud or in thick sand. Then you might just see it poking through. And that entire structure is managed or sort of controlled by a massive series of tendons that attach to the claws themselves and are extended when that tendon and muscle contracts to pull the claws out of their sheath. And they've got complete control over that. So it is voluntary. It does happen involuntary, with involuntary movements. So when the claws extend naturally when a lion leaps on something like a buffalo. But they can control it as well, and sometimes you see them do it when they stretch out. And you know how you sort of, when you first wake up in the morning and you do a big stretch, lions often do that as well, and they extend their claws, contracting and relaxing all of those muscles. The lion's paw is an amazing thing. It is absolutely massive, around the size of a side plate or a man's hand spread out. And one swipe of those paws, as Brent is very fond of saying, could take your head off your shoulders. They're exceptionally, exceptionally strong. And the Birmingham boys, I would say they're still relatively small lions. Obviously they've come into their role with serious determination, but I would say that they are probably still around about 200 or so kilograms, even being somewhat small in inverted commas male lions. And hello to Better Fish, who is I think a relatively new viewer. I certainly haven't answered a question from you before. Welcome, Better Fish, to your new Safari Live addiction. Don't worry, there's plenty of support available out there, and we are very happy to have you on board. You say that these lions are so deeply asleep, so who's keeping watch? And the answer is nothing sleeps as peacefully or as deeply as a lion does, because actually there's not much out here that they have to worry about. The only thing that really might chase them away is an elephant, and they probably would have been listening, smelling before they went to sleep, so they know that there are no elephants on their way. The other thing that could be a threat would be another coalition of male lions, but again, I think they're pretty much on top of where all the lions are. They know whether or not anything is going to come and attack them, so they're not concerned about that. And then, of course, there's the fact that all cats sleep very deeply, but they're always subconsciously listening. So whilst they look as though they are fast asleep, those ears are still working, and it would be very difficult for something to actually sneak up upon them, because they're still listening, they're still subconsciously taking in the sounds around them. Dozy cats. Lions, of course, the champion of all the animals when it comes to sleeping. 22 hours a day at times. I'm not going to say the Birmingham boys are lazy, though, because that's a very unfair thing to say. Yes, they spend a lot of their time sleeping, but they've also covered a good, in the last 3 days, probably around about about 30 miles, and probably even more than that. And we just sort of roughly know where they've ended up, so I'm calculating in a straight line. But they probably didn't walk in a straight line. And they definitely have earned the sleep that they're getting. They're all the way at Dixie Koppies in Manuleti, and apparently I was chatting to one of the guides from the Manuleti area yesterday, and apparently they were very close to the Nkuhuma Pride, who was with one of the remaining Salati males. So one of the Salati males recently died. I only saw them once. I'm sure they were seen more regularly than that, but in my 2 years here, I only saw them once. And that was when they came onto Juma and looking a little bit nervous and a bit skittish when they were in this particular part of Juma. But they apparently were very, very close there yesterday. Now, this particular coalition consists of 4 young males. They were originally 5 when they first came into this area. They came in initially sort of sneakily. They caught a few buffalo. I think Hayden was there when they caught those buffalo. And then they came in properly full force halfway through 2015. And Mr. Bean's teddy bear, which is a really lovely name for your username, Mr. Bean's teddy bear would like to know. I can't get Rowan Atkinson's face out of my head. Terribly inappropriate thoughts to have whilst trying to have a serious discussion. He wanted to know what happened to the 5th Birmingham boy. So the 5th Birmingham boy was one of the younger ones, and his name was Scrapper or Tokolosh, depending upon who you asked, and he was wonderfully charismatic. He had a big black eye, which made him look quite sinister. And he was often in the forefront of the sort of aggressive encounters that the Birmingham boys had. We don't know exactly what it was that happened to him. He started to lose condition for a good few weeks before he died. He was looking painfully thin and very uncomfortable. And there was a suggestion, we'll never know with absolute certainty. One of the guests, who was a doctor, suggested that it looked as though he had a massively punctured lung, and there did seem to be some major internal bruising around his ribs, and we suspect that was probably during a buffalo hunt that had gone wrong. He got kicked in the chest, or he got kicked in the stomach, and it might have cracked a rib that punctured his lung. We don't know for absolute certain exactly how it was that he obtained that injury, but he survived for quite a long time with it before eventually he just succumbed. He just couldn't quite keep up with the rest of the Birmingham boys. Instinct drove him to keep following them, keep with them, keep playing a crucial role in their takeover. And unfortunately for him, it was just more than he had the strength for. And he was found dead on Buffelshoek, if I'm not mistaken. When was that? Jeepers, I can't even remember now in terms of timelines. But we did see him mating. It must be over a year ago now. No, it'd be about a year ago. Gosh, time really does fly out here. It moves in very strange ways. But we did see him mating before he died, and so there's always the possibility that he might have passed on his genetic line to maybe the older Styx cubs, who unfortunately didn't make it. He was actually one of the first lions, the first Birmingham boy. He was the first Birmingham boy, unless I'm much mistaken, that was seen mating with one of the females. And it must have been when Scott and Nikki were still here, because they got that video of him mating with one of the females, or at least attempting to. Their initial attempts were inexperienced. They didn't quite know exactly what they were doing or exactly how to go about wooing a lioness, or in fact exactly what the lioness was trying to do when the lionesses were walking up to them and flirting with them, and they kept responding aggressively and chasing them away. Then the lioness would come back and go, guys, this is what you're meant to do if you're the dominant males in this area. This is how it all works. Luckily for us, and for the Nkuhumas and for the Birmingham boys, they have since grown into their role, and they know exactly what it is they're all about. Okay. Now, the two of them have very tight bonds within their coalitions, or all of them have very tight bonds within their coalitions. And, sorry, Lou, irrelevant? Yes, okay, I got it. A combination of irrelevant and elephant. Irrelevant, you want to know if they will groom each other like we see with the lionesses. Yes, and actually I find that male lion coalitions are even more affectionate towards the members than the lionesses are with each other. There really is a great deal of affection shown. Lots of head rubbing, they don't necessarily groom as much, but they often come into contact with each other more. That constant sort of head rub greeting. I've got some really stunning pictures of the bonds between males in a coalition. And the funny thing about that is that they'll have a fight over a female. They'll have a fight over a lady, and it'll be all claws and teeth and growls and noise and fury, and then 2 seconds later it's actually forgotten. Once they've finished mating with the female, then they're back to their usual tightly bonded nature, and more than happy about the fact that they're back together again. They've got a serious bro code, these male lion coalitions. And they have to. Those bonds are essential because their future and their ability to pass on their genetic line is dependent upon those bonds. I need to do some chattering on the Game Drive comms, so while I do, let's find out if Brent has reached Buffelshoek Dam and what's happening there.
We've passed, we're on the move again. And so far no sign of anything, but there could be leopard tracks on Cheetah Cut Line. What do you think, Dave? I actually don't care what you... No, I'm joking, Dave. Dave says, oh, you're giving me such a hard time today. I was like, Dave, I always give you a hard time. But I haven't been picking on Josh for a while. So, yes. Of course, Josh is quite happy because this is very English weather. Oh, no, sorry, it's not. It's not raining. And I'm wearing shorts, which I didn't for the whole month and a half I spent in English summer. But I think this cloud's going to break up. I think we're going to have a beautiful day. Laura would like to know, when I'm looking for the footprints of the animals, how do I tell the difference between old and new? Well, there's a couple of different ways, Laura, and the best way is to show you. So, unfortunately there are no tracks here, but I can get a stick, and that'll do. How's this here, Dave? We do have tracks as well, but someone has driven down here already this morning. But so, when you're looking on a road, let's pretend, there we go, there we go, there's a lion track. Not to scale, but if you look carefully, there's different little tracks of little animals. So first thing we would look at, and it all depends on what the weather's been like, but if I show you quickly here, as soon as I blow a bit of wind, makes the track far less distinct. Let's just use my hand because it'll be a bit easier to see. Now another thing we look at is something like this. So there we go, we've got the tracks of, size-wise, probably an emerald spotted wood dove. So emerald spotted wood dove are out at first light and they walk. So if we find wood dove tracks over there, we know it's sometime during the night. Another thing, there's a lot of little insects. If we find scorpion tracks, millipede tracks, insects and arachnids and arthropods that walk around at night, and they wander all over the tracks, so we look for that. So if we want a really nice track, we want to see tracks on top of the dove tracks, on top of the insects, arachnids and arthropods from the night, and then we know it's a very fresh track. And we also don't want any edges that are faded from sort of wind. Now if it's windy, of course, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And also having just a good idea about what's happening with all the animals in the area, keeping up to date with the other guides so you know the movements, is also a nice way to find out whether things are fresh or not. It's actually getting a bit warm. So, see, now this is the problem now. This is quite a palaver to get your hat without removing your microphone. Oh, there we go. There we go. Because it is warming up quite quickly at the moment. I thought that was quite well done. Okay, let's continue on. So I'm going to go check the southern boundary quickly around Twin Dam, see if hopefully Karula hasn't crossed out. But first we're going to check for male tracks along the eastern boundary. So in this particular first section here, we're likely to see the tracks of two different sets of male leopards. One is Tingana, and the other more in this area where we are at the moment is Djuma, who I haven't seen in an age. The ghost from the north, the disappearing leopard. He's much better than he used to be, but still quite skittish. Siobhan from Montreal is wondering, do leopards live in one specific area or do they move from place to place? Well, female leopards, once they've established their territory, unless they are attacked or pushed out by another leopard, they will stay in a specific territory. In this area, it's about 1,300 to 1,500 hectares, so about 3,000 acres that a female leopard will live in. A male leopard, once he's dominant and established a territory, will actually swing territories about halfway through his dominance period. And there's a very important reason for this, and I don't think leopards do it consciously. So what happens is a male will be set up, and then another male might push him, and then he will have to leave, but that's normally when he's older. But they'll swing territories at some point while they're still dominant, and it's a little evolutionary tick that's, I suppose, in their head that they do that so they don't end up mating with their daughters. They do mate with their daughters sometimes, but normally they'll swing territory. So, but again, once they've established, they don't normally stay in that area for a very long time. Okay, so no sign of anything here in the east at the moment, just grass and a fork-tailed drongo. Oh, and it's a fork-tailed left frame drongo, or right frame in this case. Exit frame right. I think I've just heard the worst joke I've heard in a very long time from Louise in Final Control. She said a fork-tailed gongo. No. No. No! Yes. Louise thinks it's very funny, but Louise is the only one who thinks Louise is funny. Sorry, Lou. Okay. It's a very good spot. This is sort of the boundary between Djuma and Tingana, so let's have a look if there are any fresh leopard tracks here. Negative. Okay, well, we're going to keep heading to the south, and then we're going to change and head to the west. While we do that, let's go see how Stef's faring on those size 11s.
We've left the area where we think those leopard are in favor of not disturbing them, or in favor of not disturbing those lion as well in the same place. We don't quite know what is going on, so we're sort of tentatively walking circles around that particular area looking for any other tracks, even though I'm fairly certain that Karula and her cubs are still around the Chelepan area with those lion. But Brian and I have decided that we're going to do something with you, because I think it's quite nice. This morning has just been one of those days where the color green has just been really shouting at us today. It's really such a vibrant color. I think it is mainly because of the fact of the grey clouds plus a little bit of water, and it's just such a nice place to be. So I want to invite you to do something, and this is mainly for our benefit and yours, I suppose, is I'd like to invite you to take a picture, a screenshot of me sitting in this grass at the moment that is higher than my head, and this lovely color that's going around. Take a picture, and then in October, when we're despondent because we haven't seen the color green in a long time, in 3 or 4 months, at the end of our dry season, is post this picture of us sitting over here in the grass, as hope of better days to come. This is really just one of the nicest times of year. For me, I've always said that February and May are my favorite times of the year, and the rains came a little bit late this year, so it's come into the first week of March. But to be honest with you, this is what I really, really love about this time of year, is just the vibrancy, this electrifying green color, all the insects around, just the diversity. Everything's busy. There's lovely birds making noises. Everything's just busy. It's just it's a nice time of year. What we can expect going forward from here is gradually drying out of the bush as we go into our dry season, with the grass starting to fall flat from about May onwards. And then from there, it's literally just a survival for water and the last remaining bits of food resource around, and until we get to October, which is our driest in terms of the bush. There is some rain in October, usually a quick storm or two, and there will be some flowers that come out, but generally grass covers at its minimum during October, and then we go into November and December when our first rains fall and we start to get this grass coming out. But this is the grass at its best. We're not going to find the grass getting any thicker or any greener than it is right now. And so, like I said, for me, it would be nice to take a picture like this, send it back to me again in October, just with a little bit of a well wish. Hold on there, good times will come again. Basically, I'm sitting here watching a bunch of insects come out of the grass as I've been here, and it's been quite interesting to see. There's a flock of Polyrhynchus ant that is busy invading this patch of bush that I've been sitting in for a bit, and basically what they're doing is they're tending aphids. Now, aphids are generally associated with flowers, and in particular rose bushes. In your gardens, I'm sure aphids are a big problem. Here, the ants actually farm, or shepherd is the more correct term. They shepherd aphids. They shepherd them into collections on grass and on sticks, and what they do is they then tend the aphids. They tickle them with their feelers. The aphid produces a little drop of honeydew, which is basically a sweet treat for the ant. The ant then sucks up the honeydew and uses it for its own purposes. But there's a symbiosis that goes on over there. The ant enjoys the honeydew and doesn't want to have too much effort in finding it, so shepherds all the aphids together. The aphids just want to suck the plant juices. They don't want to be bothered by anything, in particular by anything that wants to eat them, like a ladybird, for instance. And they benefit from the protection of the ants. The ants, not wanting to relinquish their honeydew resource, will protect the aphids from being preyed upon by things. And ladybirds are one of the things that are sort of the aphid killers out here. They tend to farm the aphids. One of my favorite trees is this. This is the sour plum, or Ximenia. And in Christmas time, so around about December, end of December, beginning of January, they get this bright red fruit, and you pop it into your mouth and it starts off a burst of sweetness that it turns into the most intense sour taste. It's like these sweets that you buy in the shops that have that intense sour taste. This is the bush equivalent of that. And then when you get through, there's a soft shelled seed on the inside. You can peel the husk off of the seed and pop a nut in your mouth that is about the size of a macadamia nut and just as tasty, to be honest. Nice day. I think we're going to walk out onto the road here somewhere and carry on with our day. It's getting a bit thick for us to walk through over here without risking a cord or something on this pack. So while we make our way out of this block, why don't we send you over to Jamie, who's still sitting with those lions.
Our lion's head is up. Tinyo is looking around him, looking towards the direction of those impala that we were sitting with earlier. And I thought just for 1 second, I thought perhaps there was a possibility that he was going to think about hunting them, because I can actually see the impala now. They're wandering slowly but surely in this direction, and he can see that too. Oh boy. What have you hurt on your face, that side? Why is your face twitching? There's something sore there. Somewhere on that right side of his face. There's a reason that his lips curling like that. There's something uncomfortable. I can't see anything, apart from old scars. And a bit of scars from the mange that he had. But something's hurting him. I don't know if it's around his eye, but you can see the way he's sort of wincing. What's there, my boy? Are you up? Oh, goodness gracious, we are active today. Look, he's going to go and flop down on the other side of the tree. What a pity. That is distinctly unfair of you, Tinyo, because I was just about to talk about your scar. The reason Tinyo is called Tinyo is because he had a rip in the left-hand side of his face, on his cheek, around his lip, and for a long time that exposed his canine tooth. You could actually see it through the rip in his mouth, and it's since healed up completely. It's very hard to see if he's completely relaxed, but every now and again he lifts up his head, and obviously the way that he's been lying and the way that the skin pulls, it pulls his one cheek up, so it looks as though he's grimacing all the time. It's quite funny. He sort of looks around at you with his tooth poking out. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's very clearly very, very Tinyo. So at least, even though that scar heals up, the name still fits. Mufmo has also decided he wants to roll over, so we can't even have a look at his facial injuries anymore. The resilience of these creatures when it comes to healing up from the wound around Mufmo's eye is, as I said, it definitely came close to taking out the eye itself. And the question is whether or not he would be able to adapt. And that came from Lance. Now, Lance, yes, he would. It's not that uncommon to see one-eyed male lions wandering about. There's none in this area, but I have seen them before. And they learn to... It was the same. We had a conversation about this not so long ago with leopards, because Karula had a little bit of an injury around her eye. We spoke about the fact that they're such adaptable creatures. As long as it's just the one eye, they'll learn to sort of strengthen the muscles around the other and compensate for something like that. So yes, absolutely, he would be able to live and adapt, especially with 3 other buddies around him. That would most definitely help. I'll just say, looking at the lions, I want to show you something, but I have to try and catch it, and I'm scared it's going to fly away. So just, you keep watching the lions, and oh goodness, got attacked by a mantid while I was trying to get this. I found a moth that looks like a seashell. I'm going to try and pick it up. Come on, it's alright. It's tiny, 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 so it's requiring a bit of maneuvering. Please don't fly away. Oh, blast. Never mind. I think I lost it. Where did it go? Hold on. I've still got it. Luckily, our vehicles are basically insect traps for these sorts of things. Here we go. Let me pop you on here. There we go. Look here. It's the prettiest little moth. It's absolutely minute, but look how gorgeous it is. Oopsie. Shame. It's on its way out. It's on its last legs. Oh dear, now it's upside down. But it looks like a little seashell, somehow. It's got this sort of beautiful bottle green patterning. Shame. Sorry, little one. You're not very healthy at all. There we go. You can sort of see the patterning on the feathers. It's pretty, huh? Really, really pretty. Shame. I think that's pretty much the end of that moth. Never seen one like that ever before. I want to take a photo of it. It's a really very, very pretty moth. And absolutely minute. It's smaller than my pinky fingernail. Let's look at it again now that it's facing us. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? My thumbnail next to it to give you a sense of scale. Sorry, I just wanted to share that with you since our lions are now as flat as they come. I thought you might appreciate that moth. What else can I collect in here for you? Many things. There's a mantid, who I'm trying to catch, but is never mind. No, come here. Come here. It's alright, I'm not going to hurt you. Okay, never mind. Mantid's gone. Let's look at the lions instead. Instead of our treasure chest of insects that find their way into the vehicles every night. Welcome to Dr. Rob. Dr. Rob, the question that you've asked is actually more the norm than it is an exception. So these Birminghams often split up. It's very common for all male lion coalitions to do so. Once they've established themselves, unless there is a direct threat to their territory in the form of other male lions, that they need the advantage of numbers, they actually, once they've got their territory, they will split up regularly. And the reason that they do that makes complete sense. If you've got a massive territory, it makes more sense for you to sort of be in either on your own or in pairs, ideally, because of course they're social cats, so they like to be with company. But to be in a sort of a partnership, so that they can actually patrol the territories of their boundaries of their territory without worrying about, you know, neglecting one side. So two of them can go up to the northern part of the territory, two can go to the southern part, and they'll meet up every now and again, possibly every night, possibly a little bit less often than that, but they will meet up. So that is very common, especially for large coalitions. Obviously, if you've got a coalition of two, it's less common, but at the same time, you'll often find them wandering about on their own. So yes, absolutely. It is relatively common to see these lions splitting off. And it's usually, I hesitate to say this with absolute certainty because I'm sure it will change in the future. It's usually Mufmo and Tinyo that are together like this. Nena and Nsugu often on their own. Sometimes we see Nena with them as well. But again, as I said, all four of them have been on Mala Mala, and then all four of them went to the north, to Manyeleti. And that probably in a straight line is a distance from where they ended up at Dixie Koppies on Manyeleti yesterday. In a straight line, that's about 20 miles. It might be a slight exaggeration. Let's say 15 or so miles. We've spoken before about the different ways in which coalitions are formed. And Leslie, you want to know if the Birmingham boys would let another male lion join their coalition? Probably not at this stage. It is unlikely. It's not impossible. Stranger things have happened. So male lions are not strict about whether or not they're related to the members of their coalition. They're quite happy to form a coalition with an unrelated male. The Birmingham boys are all related in some way. And so their bonds, the fact that they were able to sort of form a coalition from the beginning, from the point that they were ready to leave the pride, would make their bonds very tight and make it very difficult for an interloper to come in. Whereas a group of 2 young males or a single young male lion would be a lot more accepting of a potential new coalition partner. But never say never, because sometimes strange things happen. And I think the Mapocho is one of the biggest, the oldest Mapocho actually joined a little bit later than the other 5, if I remember correctly. So it does happen. There's some theories as to whether or not they might be more strict about it. It might be directly related to them. But I would say that your most likely answer is no. Our Impala are slowly but surely getting close to these lions. I don't think they're going to race and hunt them, but you never know. So we're going to sit here patiently. Let's go across to Stef with an animal that I think he's allergic to.
Alrighty, so what we've got here is very similar to those lions that you've been watching, not male lions, but like a pride of lions. These is also hunt cooperatively. These are some drop-tail ants, and these ants are swarming over what looks to be a caterpillar in the road here that was attached to the stick and probably fell down and has enticed almost the entire colony to come out here and help with this particular food resource. I don't quite know what they're doing. Why so many ants? I don't know enough about ants to tell you exactly what's going on over here. I just know that the struggle probably caused the ants to release a pheromone which called more and more ants. So in other words, the struggle in trying to subdue the caterpillar released a pheromone which called more and more ants. The ants have arrived, realized that the prey has been subdued, and are now starting to disperse. And that's why we're not seeing the frenzy, and we're seeing a bit of to and froing here. But generally ants will then dismember the prey and then carry it off to their nest to feed to their young. In the case with these drop-tail ants is that they all cooperatively pull their prey toward the nest. They don't saw it into smaller pieces. And I read some interesting resource the other day that said that collectively a much larger piece of prey can be dragged to the nest if it's dismembered. If it's collectively dragged, than if it's dismembered and then taken in pieces to the nest. So these ants have got a clear strategy in that they are able to subdue much larger species of prey than single ants would, and they can transport much larger species of prey as a unit than if they were to dismember it and one ant carrying one wing and another ant carrying another leg. That said, however, the siafu of East Africa and the army ant and its army ant cousins in other rainforests around the globe are commonly known to dismember their prey and to carry it in pieces. But I suppose they cover a much wider area doing that, and therefore collectively I suppose they'd be able to catch a much higher volume of prey than if all the ants in a colony sort of went to one place to subdue the largest thing they could find. So what you're looking at is the most evolved species of insect on the planet, the ants. Their social structures, their body designs, their defense mechanisms, their communication strategies and mechanisms and physiology, all of it is the most advanced out of all the insects that we look at on the planet. I'm just being told that you can actually see our reflections, the three of us on the road, in the abdomens of the ants. How absolutely bizarre. Fantastic work from Brian. Take your screenshots. Don't forget, it's not every day that we get to see these things, and archiving bizarre angles on bizarre insects and bizarre flowers is of course something that you can look back at in years to come. When you're labeling this, you can label it the drop-tail ant, March 2017, and they are on some or other caterpillar on the end of a terminalia stick. Very, very, very nice. Now these ants do have a sting and they can bite. So ants, bees and wasps all belong to the insect order Hymenoptera. They all belong to the same insect order, so they're all related. It's just a bee and a wasp can fly and an ant cannot, obviously, but their reproductive alates, their kings and queens, can fly. Flying ants is where the term comes from. It's not only restricted to termites. And they all share a similar characteristic in that their larvae are hosted and looked after. They have a very, very good maternal care. I can't remember, or natal care is what I really want to say. Although they're all females in any case, so I suppose you could call it maternal care. It's just not their own babies, it's the queen's babies. But pupae and young and eggs are fastidiously looked after, religiously looked after is probably the word that most aptly describes the way that ants look after their babies, and will be transported from one place to another, cleaned by special cleaners, fed morsels that have been meticulously prepared and in some cases even fermented for a while to increase the nutritional value of the food that is being fed to them. And then they become adults like you're looking at now, and from this particular point they all work collectively for the collective whole of an ant colony, which in some cases has been described as being a super colony, or a super organism is the word I was looking for. So in other words, that you're looking at one organism, the ant colony, made up of many individual parts, each individual ant. Isn't that just the most bizarre concept to try and digest and think about? Obviously people in the movie industry have been thinking about it for years, and most of our alien sci-fi horror movies that we look at the moment are these super colonies of aliens that come and take over Earth because they somehow all act collectively and think collectively. I haven't quite got one that, mostly it's telepathy rather than pheromones that they communicate with. Hey Brian? Brian being a sci-fi fan, sci-fi horror fan. Brian's whole camera and hands and everything are covered in these ants at the moment as they're busy releasing their need to all collectively subdue this particular caterpillar, and are starting to spread out through the bush again and look for other prey sources. Let's track them back to their nest and see how far they've actually managed to come and look. Here we go, here's their nest here. So not too far, I mean probably about 2 yards or so. Here's the entrance burrow to their gallery. There we go. And that is where they'll eventually transport that caterpillar to. And there'll be a couple of chambers underneath that gallery. You can see this is all the sand that has come from their galleries. They'll stay here for a couple of weeks to a couple of, not more than a couple of months. What happens is that this ant colony will eventually be raided by something, and these ants will have to move. Either that, or they'll deplete all the food sources that are available in this particular area, and at that point, these ants will then have to move. But this is also interesting here. This is bizarre. Now we've seen the ants suffering from, the flies in this area suffering from Summit's disease, and I think that's what we're seeing here. Here's a collection of ants that have crawled to the top of a grass, died clutching the grass from a fungus, and that fungal infection deranges them, causes them to walk to the top of grass stems, clutch on, and then they die there. The fungus then erupts from their bodies and infects ant colonies and can kill entire colonies, and I think that's what we're looking at here, is the dead bodies of these ants. Isn't that interesting? I wonder if this colony is not under threat of the cordyceps fungus, an ant killer. Yeah, on that cliffhanger, we're going to send you over to Jamie and those lions for the last couple of moments of the show.
And what a cliffhanger it was, Stef. I must apologise if I misinformed you. Stef is not allergic to ants. I thought Louise said a swarm of bees, not a swarm of ants. So as far as I know, Stef is not allergic to ants. That would really seriously suck. He is, however, allergic to bees. Luckily, none of us are allergic to lions, or at least none of us get close up enough or have been close up enough recently to test that theory. And our lions are, now the sun's popped out. It would have been nice a bit earlier with the actual morning light rather than the sun up as high as it is. But it was worth it to see 2 male lions after about a month and a half's absence. Last time I saw a male lion was, I think it was at Cheetah Plains, where we had very little signal and very little visual of them. And nice to see them back out into the open, and I'm sure they're going to be here this evening for the sunset safari. So perhaps we shall have an enjoyable evening spent with them roaring right next to us. That's what I think should happen. I think you all agree. What do you say, Mufmo? Yes, I'm going to give us a roar tonight. It's been so long since I've heard lions next to us. It would be very, very pleasant indeed. Nothing quite as visceral as that sound. The impala that were walking towards them have now stopped walking towards them. I didn't think it was likely that they were going to shoot off and go hunting them. They don't look as though they've got any plans for such things. And I also think the impala know that they're here. And Brent's just told me that where the monkeys were alarm calling, they did have tracks of Karula. So we'll try and follow up on her this afternoon as well. I'm sure those cubs are somewhere just hiding in the thick grass in the drainage line, somewhere there. All in all, lots of good reasons not to miss the sunset safari this afternoon. Male lions, female lions, potential leopards. It's all happening out here on these live safaris. So thank you, Tinyo and Mufmo, for showing up. Don't know where you came from. Well, I know where you came from. I just don't know how you got here. But thanks nevertheless for turning up. On that note, it is the end of our sunrise safari, so thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Craig, for your wonderful camera work as always, and thank you to Lou and to Kirsty in Final Control, who somehow managed to keep all of us under control, which is no easy feat, that I can tell you. And of course, pass along your questions and your comments. Most importantly, on the note of questions and comments, thank you to all of you for sending through yours. It's been a lovely, lovely sunrise safari, and I look forward to seeing you on the sunset safari. Bye-bye, everybody, and have a lovely day.